Chapter 31 now, in the subjunctive. We have moved from the indicative verb to the participle and now the non-indicative moods of Greek verbs. Indicative is a mood. Participles are not a mood necessarily of Greek verbs. They are verbals. They're built on verbs. But now we're back to verbs proper, if you will. We start with indicative, the indicative mood of verbs, and now to the subjunctive. Let's review that for just a couple of moments as we start here. It'll help to give a framework for what we're looking at. The indicative mood, as the word describes, indicates something. It states an indication, i.e., reality. Be it the present, future, aorist, perfect, imperfect, we are thinking about a statement of reality. Even the future, and this is important to note, though an indicative future is stating something that has not happened yet, the author or speaker wishes for us to understand that action from his or her perspective as taking place in the future, but in reality. This brings us then to the subjunctive. Not that the subjunctive is a mood of non-reality or a mood of fantasy, but it's a mood of possibility or probability. In English, we think of this as may, would, might. Those words help us to understand something as possible and probable. And probability is perhaps the best way to think of the subjunctive, the mood of probability. Something is working out in a probable sense. We will look also in a bit at the imperative. That will be down the road in Mounts. We'll take one chapter and look at the Greek imperative, the mood of command, where an author or speaker makes a statement directing someone or something to act in a specific way under his or her authority. And authority is the idea with the imperative. Or at times, not authority, but great need or a great desire. Imperatives in the New Testament often function in prayers and people praying to God in the imperative. Not over him, he's not under our authority, but in the sense of great need. So in indicative, we've looked at subjunctive, now imperative to come. The subjunctive in the present tense stem, lengthened connecting vowel. And this is the feature that lets you recognize subjunctive most clearly. Again, it's the marker on our bag in the baggage claim area so we can grab hold of it, that lengthened connecting vowel, be it the present or the aorist, the undefined we'll look at in a moment, but that lengthened connecting vowel, omicron to omega, epsilon to eta, and then the primary personal endings. The paradigm, pretty easy then. Luo is the same in the indicative and the subjunctive, and context will help you to determine meaning. If it's indicative, I loose or I continue to loose, or I may loose in the subjunctive. Lengthened connecting vowel then in lues, lue, luomen, luete, luosen. And you can see, take for example the second plural, luete, luete. You can hear it in the lengthened connecting vowel. If you see the lengthened connecting vowel, you will know that we are dealing with a subjunctive, and then you can look at the tense stem, present, and move on from there. Present middle passive, subjunctive. We know our endings, my, psi, tai, metha, sitha, ntai. And here they work out just with the lengthened connecting vowel. Luomai, lue, luetai, luometha, lueste, luontai. Notice the perfect regularity there in the lengthened connecting vowel signals subjunctive mood of probability. When you hear that lengthened connecting vowel, you're trying to read out loud, you can almost think lengthened connecting vowel, something is probable, almost as if the lengthened connecting vowel lengthens the time it takes to speak the word, and something is probable but not indicative. That's not the reasoning behind it, but that's one way to help you to recognize. And I do encourage you to read the text out loud, even if it's just fumbling through it. That's the way students learn to read any language. If you go to a French class or a German class or a Hebrew class, other biblical language, it's fumbling through, but that's how we make progress. And even in hearing the language, at times we can parse words. The aorist undefined subjunctive, unaugmented aorist tense stem, similar to the participle, no augment, because the aorist does not indicate past time necessarily in the participle or the subjunctive. In the indicative it does in some cases, but it's unaugmented. There's a tense formative in the first aorist. Lengthened connecting vowel, similar to the present, and this is the key to subjunctives. But without the augment, we use primary personal endings. So the subjunctive uses no secondary endings, only primary. The present is always that way, and the subjunctive, since there's no augment, it's atemporal. Its only significance is aspect, an undefined aspect from the speaker-writer's perspective. Though context may give us a past time idea, this is how things work out. So, primary endings. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi, or usin, mai, sai, tai, methasitha, ntai. One note as well, with the aorist passive, just as in the indicative, it uses active endings, but here primary active. So, paradigm of the aorist active subjunctive, first aorist indicative there, and notice the first aorist subjunctive. The subjunctive uses primary endings. The indicative uses secondary, so you can see the difference. And the lengthened connecting vowel. Look at the second aorist indicative and second aorist subjunctive. Again, no augment, and the second aorist subjunctive uses primary endings. Paradigm of the aorist middle subjunctive. Again, first aorist indicative, first aorist subjunctive. Lengthened connecting vowel, the omega, and then eta, eta, omega, eta, omega there in the first aorist subjunctive. Second aorist middle subjunctive. Same, lengthened connecting vowel. Genomai, gene, genetai, genomatha, geneste, genontai. And the translation, could, may, might, and context will help you to determine meaning. Aorist passive subjunctive, and here's where we're sort of doubly out of what we would think of with the aorist. Normally think aorist, if we're in the indicative, we're using secondary endings, but not here because we have no augment. So it's atemporal, it's undefined. We use primary endings. But with the passive, again, we use active endings, just as the aorist indicative passives use active endings. We still have the tense formative in the first aorist, the theta, but here with the lengthened connecting vowel. So lutho, luthes, luthe, luthomen, luthete, luthosin. You're beginning to notice patterns, I hope. If you see an eta with the iota subscript and a sigma, you're thinking second singular. If you see that's really perhaps the most difficult one here, but just notice that, and it's thinking second singular. If you have a lengthened connecting vowel iota subscript, you're in the subjunctive. Reviewing here, Again, unaugmented aorist tense stem, tense formatives for the first aorist, lengthened connecting vowel, always primary endings. Why? No augment, and passive uses active endings. The subjunctive present of contract verbs, you may want to go back to chapter 17 and remember the contract rules, but this is the way various words would work out. Perhaps the most difficult is the AO, the third one, the Omicron Omega combination, phaneroi in third singular active and second singular middle or passive. The oi there may be just different for us, but you may want to note that and look at chapter 17. And also, just notice the second singular active and second singular middle passive, third singular active and second singular middle or passive are the same. And again, the contract rules would apply there. Let's talk about exegesis of the subjunctive for just a couple of moments and hints as Mounts notes. How can we know what a subjunctive is? Well, lengthened connecting vowel is the first handle. The second handle, often it's the case that one of three words, and Mounts notes that there are more, but these are the big three. One of three words will occur before the subjunctive: hina, ein, or heos. Hina often denotes purpose, so that, or in order that. Ein, a condition, if. If this with the subjunctive verb, then the main verb clause. Think of computer language, if-then statements, if this, then that. Heos, often a temporal until. So you see those words, see a lengthened connecting vowel, subjunctive. Once you know it's a subjunctive, you can look for the tense stem, and then you'll be able to know present continuous, aorist undefined, and work toward second, first, third person, whatever it would be, singular, plural, active, middle, or passive. Negation of the subjunctive. Hina plus may or ume negates the purpose, so that not. Ein, if not, and temporal doesn't normally have the negation quite as much that I'm aware of anyway, and this certainly not as much in the maybe outside of the New Testament. I'm not aware of much in the New Testament. So these would be the main ideas to focus on. And with that, the subjunctives and infinitives in the next chapter.